Welcome to Brother Owl's Garden. I'm so happy to introduce to you again, the third time appearing on our channel, Deng Ming-Dao, coming to us from San Francisco. Thank you, brother, for appearing again and sharing of your many, many diverse and wonderful gifts. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's really my honor to be here.
And I honor your presence and the presence of all of our viewers. Today, let me say this first about Ming-Dao. He is a multi-dimensional, multifaceted master at so many different things. He's a martial artist. He's a well-published author. He even has some cookbooks, but also he is an artist of the energy of life. And in that context, today, he has graced us and is going to teach us about QiGong. Now, a lot of us may not know what QiGong is. Is that Tai Chi? Is that a martial art? So we're going to start with real fundamental basics here and ask you, Ming-Dao, what is QiGong?
QiGong is an exercise system based on the breath. So one translation of Qi is breath. And although it may sound the same to some people, QiGong and Tai Chi, when they pronounce it Tai Chi, it's not the same Qi. And in fact, if you're going to say Tai Chi, you really should pronounce it Tai Chi. So the Qi of Tai Chi and the Qi of QiGong are not the same word at all.
Okay.
Gong means to train. All right. So QiGong means, on one level, breath training. Although we access the breath, we shouldn't limit our idea of QiGong to the breath. So really, Qi means energy. So QiGong means the training and the exercise of our energy.
Someone might say energy training for the sake of perhaps energy mastery.
Yes, and all you have to do is circulate the energy. That's the very simple, basic thesis. The Taoists say that we naturally have all the abilities to heal if we would just let the energy move inside us. Why does the energy not move inside us? Sometimes we have injuries, illnesses, blockage, stress. We sit in weird postures and so on. And so we're really not letting energy move to every part of our body. So QiGong means, can you circulate the energy? Can you not lose any energy? And can you gain more energy? And where does the energy come from? It has to come from outside. The air comes from outside. The essence from the food we eat comes from outside. And just the energy around us, the sunlight, the electromagnetism, and so on, all that comes from outside. We all naturally take that in ourselves. But how can we do that in a mindful fashion? And how can we send it to parts of our body that might need it? And that's the very simple idea of QiGong.
Oh, simple but profound, and profoundly simple, as truth always is. I find it interesting that you see the normal inclination would be, everything is coming from within, etc. Because in spirituality, it's pretty much almost always that way. But you're speaking about gathering, accumulating energy from without. Am I correct?
Yes. So can we think about this? And yes, I know we fall in this habit of saying that everything comes from within. But that perpetuates, I think, a misconception that we are individuals in an environment. And so we think that we can take or leave it. We think we can go in our house and close off the environment. But actually, we are individuals in an environment in constant exchange.
Okay.
Don't you breathe in and out?
Yeah.
Don't you eat and eliminate?
Yeah.
Aren't parts of your body sloughing off at every moment? And aren't you taking things in to build new parts of your body? So I think the better idea is to think about ourselves in constant exchange with our environment. The environment is not the enemy. We get everything we need from the environment: air, food, water, land. We cannot make anything ourselves. You cannot live if someone threw you in a vacuum chamber naked. You wouldn't live for more than a few minutes. You can't do anything to sustain yourself. So
Right.
you have to always get it from the environment. And we give back to the environment all the time. And how marvelous this world is that it takes our carbon dioxide, our waste, and so on, and
Right.
generates new life.
Right.
So we in Qigong are consciously engaged in this process of exchange.
I love that. Eh, I'm a bit of a gardener, and I was sort of reflecting recently on how, like you said, the plants take our waste. We would perceive, this is refuse or filth or whatever, and yet when you give it to the plants, they're happy to receive it. They're not perceiving it in any way the same as we are, whether we're talking about solid, liquid, or gas. We exhale carbon dioxide, which to us is refuse, and to them is life. And then what do? Expel their waste, which is oxygen, which, so it's this, you might think of the infinity symbol, this
That's right.
this perpetual exchange. And I
Yeah,
love that. And the other thing you made me think of is everywhere you go, you leave a bit of you and take a bit of it with you. And that is
that's very
literally
true.
true on a molecular level anyway. So yeah,
It is literally true. And so, not to jump to this part right away, but then should we really be afraid of death? Because
oh,
isn't death even that continuity of
yeah,
exchange?
yeah,
And so we are always part of this world. We benefit from this world. We give back to this world. And so it would seem the decent thing to do not to ignore the world selfishly, but to pay attention to it and see our place in it.
absolutely. I mean, I'm going to pull up a quote and then I'm going to ask you to amaze us. I have to quote David Suzuki. The way we see the world shapes the way we treat it. If a mountain is a deity, not a pile of ore. If a forest is a sacred grove, not timber. If other species are biological kin, not resources. Or if the planet is our mother, not an opportunity, then we will treat each other with greater respect. Thus is the challenge to look at the world from a different perspective. It just finesses everything that we just alluded to there. So
Yeah, and I would just push it one step further. And could we take out the word if? And of course, he's being polite and he's trying to get people to understand that point of view.
mm,
But what if you really do start from that premise? And if you do start from that premise, surprise, surprise, why would you feel alienation or isolation?
yeah,
You belong to this world and this
yeah,
world belongs to you.
right.
And what's the opposite? It's the what that habit that I think many of us were taught in school, that it's just wilderness. It's empty. It's for the pioneers. They have
Yeah,
to tame the land and so on.
yeah,
Those are all misconceptions. So you
yeah,
see, he started out that message. If we could see,
right.
what we see is determined by what we were taught and how we think.
Yeah, yeah,
So we need to change our thinking in
yeah.
order to change the way we see.
And it touches a lot on the incredible importance of connectivity, which I'm sure is an inherent part of Qigong and what it helps to refine.
Yes, because we're connected to the universal chi. So remember, I started out the definition of chi as
Right,
breath.
right.
But really, if we could extend to energy, then if it's energy, whose energy? There's only one energy in the world. And the physicists tell us that there's conservation of energy. It's neither created nor destroyed. And the physicists, as well as the Taoists, say that all the energy in the world was generated in the first instance that the universe was created. There's only energy. There's only the universe's energy. And all we need to do is understand that we're always a part of it and it's always part of us.
Yeah, only separation is only an illusion or a forgetfulness. It's not a reality.
Right. And
I
in
want
some
to
people, it's an ignorance, unfortunately.
ignorance or an ignorance.
Yes, yes, indeed.
I want to ask you another fundamental question before we proceed. Does Qigong have its origins in Taoism?
You see, that's a really difficult and treacherous question, okay?
Okay.
Because you first of all have to think about what are the origins of Taoism. And the fact is that Taoism, first of all, is not monolithic. It has a vast, vast range of practices, and you cannot identify a time in which Taoism began
Okay.
because it started out from shamanistic roots among the primitive tribes in China in very distant times, and it's never been broken in
Mhm.
the thousands of years since. It evolves in all these different parts of China, and nothing is ever quite thrown away or refused. It just keeps growing. And so we all have to choose a part of Taoism that we want to partake in. There's nobody who can say, I'm every kind of Taoist, because it ranges from shamanism all the way to medicine and so on.
Okay.
So we can say that Qigong definitely is related to Taoism, but it also would have arisen at different times in different places from medical practitioners and so on, right?
Okay.
So it has all these strange mix of origins which we can't quite ascertain.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Just wondered if it was considered to have arisen out of Taoism or not. But what's more important is how does one, okay, before we go to how, why? Why practice Qigong?
Okay, so in a Taoist context, there's nothing higher than meditation. But is meditation strictly a mental act?
Hmm.
Is it a ritualistic act? For the Taoist, it's an act of energy. So for the Taoist, if you don't have energy, you can't have the power to meditate. I think it's undeniable that meditation takes energy. And if you think about the accounts of people who are advanced in meditation, they'll say they see things, or they feel sensations, or
Sure.
they get powers. That all at base is energy. So there's something to be said about providing the raw energy for your meditation, right?
Hmm.
If someone was starving, they're not going to do very well in meditation because they
Yeah.
don't have the energy. So
Mhm.
the Taoists have this idea that there are three treasures: Jing, which is our sexual essence, our libido, the essence of the food we eat, the biochemical component of our body, what we inherited from our parents. That's the basic energy of our body. Then we have qi. When that basic energy, Jing, combines with the air we breathe, it forms qi. Qi, therefore, is our internal energy. And then that energy has to be brought up to the higher centers in order to power your meditation. So that's why the three treasures make your meditation possible. If you want to be good at meditation, you have to build that foundation with diet and sleep and exercise and qigong so that you can meditate.
Yeah. Everything comes down to a good balance, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And balance within and balance between ourselves and our environment.
So we're getting a little more acquainted with kind of where Qigong appeared from and what it is all about and why we would be interested in practicing it. How would someone with no experience, for example, total beginner, how would someone begin with the first step to get acquainted with the practice of Qigong?
Well, you should have a teacher, first of all, but here are some basic ideas that you can think about and perhaps even experiment with. So, undeniably, breathing consists of inhalation and exhalation, right? So, now let's think about that. How well do we inhale? Do we just go, and that's an inhalation? For the Qigong people, there are three zones of inhalation. There's the diaphragm, there's your chest, and then your clavicles. So think about when someone gets scared
Mm.
or is in an extreme emergency, they go, right? Or what do you do when you go to the beach and you go, oh, this feels great? Do we do that all the time? Or are we sitting at the computer like this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, first of all, can you even think about the physical aspects of breathing and whether or not you're fully engaging in that inhalation process? The next step is exhalation. How well do you expel the waste gases? And if you look at just modern studies, people don't exhale everything all the time. And so we might not even be exhaling all the waste gases we ought to.
Mm.
So the first question about Qigong is, how fully are you breathing?
Mm.
The next step is this. Does the length of your breath matter? And the Qigong people say that the ratio between your inhalation and exhalation has an effect. So if you look at a baby breathing, the baby breathes very deep. You see the baby's abdomen going in and out. And then if they're concentrating, if you're a parent, you start to go, oh my God, they're not breathing because they're concentrating and the breath stays still. But if they're crying or they're upset, they go like that. So our breath pattern mirrors our mental pattern. And
Absolutely.
the simple idea is this. When your exhalation is longer than your inhalation, it has a sedating effect on the body. When your exhalation is shorter than your inhalation, it has a stimulating effect.
Okay.
And we see this when people are nervous or upset, they pant
Yeah.
because they're trying to get more energy,
Right.
right? And then if you're concentrating and you're watching TV or something, or you're feeling very calm, your breathing slows down.
Yeah.
The idea is, can you go the other way? If the breathing mirrors your mental state, can you use breath patterns to change your mental state? And you can.
So
And you can
it works
experiment
both
with this
ways.
yourself. It works both ways.
Right.
And so if you're new to Qigong and you just experiment, first try breathing in for a count of, say, 5, and breathing out for a count of 5. That would be neutral.
Yeah.
But then can you go inhale for a count of 5 and exhale for, let's say, up to a count of 10? It is going to change the way you feel.
Mhm.
And then you can try the other way.
Yeah.
You can inhale short and exhale short, and you'll find that it makes you a little dizzy. You kind of start to hyperventilate.
Yeah.
So your breath pattern changes the way you feel and think.
Yeah. It's interesting because that matches two things. The first thing is it's a proven and studied fact that if you consciously choose to smile, has nothing to do with whether you're happy or not, especially if you're not particularly feeling happy, and you make a
Yeah,
big smile,
right,
your
right, right,
your whole being says, "Oh, that's right, we're being happy," and it catches up and it becomes feeling happy. So
right.
it's sort of chicken and the egg. And the other thing is some of the technique that you mentioned about the breathing and the deliberate, not
Hmm.
necessarily the deliberate, but the mindfulness and the focus on your breathing per se
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
that's what the anapanasati, the Buddhist practice of breath meditation, where
Right.
focus on your nose and observe, not control and manipulate, not at all, but just observe and perhaps count until you've gone into a mental zone as a result of that.
Hmm.
And I think that they're congruent, what you're speaking about with.
Yes. Yes. So the Qigong people will point out to you that your breath is both under your conscious control and your subconscious control.
Okay.
And thank God, because when we're asleep, if we didn't
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
ability to breathe, we don't do autonomic
Autonomic.
and
You're right.
right, right. And so that makes it a really intriguing mechanism because by putting conscious control over your breathing, you can start to engage in the connection between your body and mind, right? And so that's instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to make energy come up to my hand, there's a technique to enter into it. And that's through your mind
Okay.
participating with your breath.
Sort of a manual override from autopilot.
Yeah, if you will. Yeah.
I mentioned to you,
Or let's just say an engagement.
okay. I mentioned to you before we began recording, I had recently injured my hand. And I, having studied Reiki and then moving into sort of what I would call, I call it sacred mana, energy. I can immediately feel the results of applying healing energy to my wounded hand. And I know that it is my some people would argue with the word directing, but channeling or directing the chi directly into the wounded area and feeling immediately an improved response. And even if I did it for 5 minutes. And so I do have some experience with, let's say, the magic of moving your chi around according to where you direct it with your consciousness. So what I'm building up to is Qigong, or does Qigong include focusing and actually directing energy by means of your consciousness, your intention?
The answer is yes. And if you get to higher levels, you can do it without movement.
Right.
But much of Qigong is about training that. So if I tell you, send the Qi to your hand and just sit there, well, that might take a long period of training, right? And what if you don't get it right? How is the teacher supposed to know? The teacher says, send energy to your hand. You go, yeah, I'm trying, but there's no way to check. So much of Qigong is about training your body. So instead of just saying, send energy to your hand, they'll say, can you do this? And can you send the energy to your palm? And they'll give you technical pointers about how to do that. How
Okay.
does the energy get out to your hand? Oh, it goes out in this pathway and around this finger to this point. You see, instead of just demanding that the student jump to that very high level of mentally directing chi, there are all these interim practices in which you can engage the body and mind together in movement. That also helps you get feedback. You see, so if I tell you, oh, expand your chest and contract your chest, are you just going to do it like this? Or if they tell you to expand like this and then contract like this,
Okay.
you see, then you can train your mind more because you can have that sensation of like this and like this. And so then let's say you're stuck on a plane and it's not socially acceptable for doing this, you can just think about going, right? And go
Right.
like this and be discreet about it.
Right.
Or you can just say, oh my God, I've been sitting here in this movie all this time and I've been going like this. You see, that you can't just ask someone to mentally master all this. You have to give them these interim practices and experiences so they can build their understanding.
But it sounds to me like it's a pairing. It's a pairing together of the intention and direction in the mind with the corresponding physical muscle and even muscle memory, muscle
Exactly.
movement. So maybe it's a poetic way to say this. Qigong is a movement meditation.
Yes, indeed. I
All
mean,
right.
it's an accurate way to say it too. It is a moving meditation in the
Okay.
sense that, and by the way, when we think about the classical meditation of someone sitting there cross-legged, that
Yeah.
is a physical act,
Mm,
right?
mm.
Don't think that just because you're sitting cross-legged, that's neutral and somehow the
Yeah.
body is gone. No, why are you supposed to sit centered and straight? Because it allows the energy to move. There's an alignment there, right?
Mm,
If you
mm.
think about all the beautiful Buddha statues, the
Yeah.
spine is in the middle, straight
Yep.
up and down, lotus position, a mudra, head straight, centered. Is that iconography
Yeah. And
or is that
always
instruction?
looking about 6 feet ahead with open but resting eyes, not looking at
Right,
but looking down about yeah, that's an it's not just, oh, look how peaceful he is, it's showing you a posture.
that's correct. So again, I think we do ourselves a disservice if we buy into this idea that there is a schism between the body and mind. There
Yeah.
is no mind body problem in
Mm,
Qigong. They don't start from that assumption
yeah.
whatsoever. And so if you can put that aside and just say, what we do physically is what we do mentally, and vice versa. And that's the way it is.
Yep.
And so we shouldn't confuse ourselves by saying there's a conflict or this distance or so on. If we go like this, it has a meaning, right? If we go like this, it has a meaning. But also, if I feel calm and my body takes a certain posture, that has a meaning too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what end you start on. You're
Got it.
always in a totality of being.
Yeah. So it's almost like, a fulcrum, and both ends are affecting both ends, and lo and behold, balance is the key again.
Yes,
Everything is
that's always the
expressive.
answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always the answer.
And chicken or the egg? Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
um, would it be possible for you, Ming-Dao, to please show us maybe a very basic introductory movement that someone who's just touching this for the first time might be able to take home with them and maybe practice it on their own as a starting point?
Well, as an example, here's a first starting point. This is from a set called the 8 Pieces of Brocade. I have a body, goes from to head to toe to the hands. How would I stretch that? So if I go like this and I put my hands over my head and I push straight up and I stand up on tiptoes, I'm stretching my spine, my arms, my legs, and so on. Now, think about this. Not only do you have a body and joints that benefit from being stretched, but you have acupuncture meridians too.
Okay.
And you have a meridian that goes out to every finger, a meridian that goes out to every toe. Those are amenable to being stretched too. So you have these energy circuits. If you look at any acupuncture book, you have these circuits that go out through all your body. How do you stretch them? And now the next thing is, do you see how my fingers are locked? And do you see how my wrists have to bend when I push up? That's going to stretch this part of my hand and my forearm. That helps the energy go through too. I have corresponding places on the bottom of my feet, and standing up on tiptoes is how you stretch that as well.
Okay.
Then notice when I go up, my torso is free, and that's when I'm going to take a big breath, inhale. And now my hands are going to come down, and now they're going naturally come in towards my torso and squeeze in. That's when I exhale. So do you see how I'm using my body movement to help me breathe more? And if my body is open here, I can take in a bigger breath, and then I'm going to relax everything so everything comes back out. The next thing to notice is what I do with my diaphragm. Because I go up like this, see, naturally, everything stretches. So I'm going to inhale and consciously pull my diaphragm and my abdomen in. So I'm facilitating that process and creating a little resistance against the inhalation And that also gives me more stimulation. And then I'm going to relax and the energy comes back down again. So that's a basic idea. Qigong people talk about form. So why does Tai Chi consist of forms, right? Why don't they just say sit there and meditate? But they have you do this, right? Or they have you do this. When we're starting, we can't quite channel the energy mentally.
Okay.
So when we take a form, the chi goes, oh, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if I go like this, the chi is going to go, oh, okay, I'll take that shape. And so if we're doing qigong like this, it says, okay, I'll take that shape. Or if we go like this, it says, oh, I can do that. Or like this, oh, I can do that. You see, and then all that time we're hopefully observing. How do we feel? Do we feel heat come up? Do we feel tingling in our hands? Do we feel something open up that was stuck before? It is a process of meditation through movement, and we need to pay attention to that.
Is there an aspect of what I like to call in a spiritual sense, I like to use the phrase getting out of your own way. Is there an aspect of, maybe in a different context, getting out of your own way when practicing qigong? In other words, the flow of the qi, you're unblocking and undeflecting, so to speak, getting out of your own way.
So I think inherent in that question is this idea that, oh, everything we do is by our intention. We're the boss. We do everything. But what if that's not the case?
Well, no,
Aren't there
I'm
other?
actually speaking the opposite, getting out of the way of the flow, ceasing
Oh,
to interfere.
oh, no, I understand that. You see, so if they give you a procedure, that becomes your flow. Okay. And then all you have to do is be a part of that flow. All right. So instead of just saying, I'm going to give you an idea to think about and you do it mentally, it's like I'm giving you a flow and then you can surrender to that. Right. And it becomes really quite pleasurable when you have a long Qigong practice. There's nothing else to do except this at the moment.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can give yourself over to that. So you really shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to watch TV while I do this. Right. Because
No.
that's not engaged in it. Right. And so if you can be, just give yourself over to it. And don't think it's like, oh, it's boring. Think about it as this. It's not asking you more than that.
Yeah.
It's only asking you to do that much.
Yeah.
So it's actually easier for you to participate in.
I like that. And I think that what you said, surrender to it, give yourself over to it. Okay, so I'm using the words get out of your own way, kind of
Mhm.
the same essence going on there.
But isn't it a relief? Isn't it a relief not to have to just like plan and think about everything and so on and so forth? And isn't there some confidence? Because for centuries, people have made this pattern. So you know it's safe, you know it's effective, you know it's going to integrate you not just with yourself,
Yeah.
but with
Yeah.
all these other practitioners who have gone before.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's not just get out of your own way because, hey, it sounds like a good idea. It's actually fun and engaging and a
Yeah.
relief, right?
And the release of any resistance in
Yes.
flowing
So
into trust.
it becomes restful.
Wonderful. Um, what more could you offer for the hopeful beginner? Oh, and I want to mention too, I know that you're soon to be featured on the Shift Network, as presenting your a qigong course on the Shift Network. Uh, when is that premiering on their website?
That's coming up in early November, and there'll be some activities leading up to that. So if you're interested, just log on to the Shift Network. And that course that I'm going to be teaching is a set of Taoist longevity Qigong. And so this
Right.
Qigong has different specialties.
Okay.
Some are medical, some are martial, and some are spiritual.
Got
And
it.
so this is a therapeutic set of exercises. And in Taoism, they've been concerned with longevity for centuries, for millennia. And the interesting thing about this set is it's all about circular energy. So we haven't talked about this yet. When we think about power in the West, we might think about weightlifting, doing bench
Okay.
presses. We
Mhm.
might think in martial arts, I'm going to punch like this. But the Qigong people say, well, that's not terribly efficient
Mhm.
because if you go out, you have to come back.
Yeah.
So what that seems to be, not enough. And so what happens when you move in circles? You don't have to change. You can just go and keep going. And so if your concern is perpetuity, don't you want to demonstrate that in your movements?
I got it. And that's why UPS delivery uh, courses only allow turns to the right in the United
Exactly.
States.
Right,
They
right,
don't
right.
have left
So,
turns as avoidable as possible anyway. To keep
well, we
just to
don't,
keep
yeah, keep that circulation going, right?
right,
There's continuity.
right.
But think about your body. If I get strong doing this, I'm only strong in that one groove. I haven't developed this or this. But in Qigong, there's all this twisting and moving like this. So it engages more muscle. And it's not about back and forth, but about moving and
Mhm.
continuing on. And that in turn affects your joints, your blood vessels, your nerves, and so on. More complicated movements are going to require more neurological engagement, right? And so on. So Qigong is so clever in these ways that they found all these different ways to move the body. And they're not just about, right?
Right, right, right. Not so mechanical, but more flowing and encompassing.
Yes. And so earlier you brought up the idea of mental engagement, right? Now I can go, okay, teacher said I have to do 100 of these. So I can do this and I go, yeah, I'm still doing 100, right? Right. But if the idea is, okay, you have to go like this, you really have to pay attention, don't you? Because as soon as you flag, it's like, oh, wait, where am I again? Right? And so it requires that mental engagement. It's not a matter of determination, it's a matter of fulfilling the tenets of that particular movement. So it involves you more.
Hmm. I don't know if this has any relevance, but things that you say make me think of things that I've seen. I saw a video recently about how a sawmill was functioning, and they have that huge grappling hook on the end of the crane that picks up these huge logs. And then as they go from one side to the other, I don't know what to call him, the log man, the man that sets it, he held on to that. I don't know if they do it anymore with OSHA, but he held on to that, and the crane would swing him back over to the pile or wherever, back and forth. And he rode this thing in the air, 30, 40 feet up in the air. And the narrator of the video mentioned that the log man, when he held on to that, he didn't just hold on. They said, if you notice, he starts to make a circular motion with his legs to keep a rotation of like this the whole time that he's in the air. The reason being,
Oh,
that
sorry, I lost you for about 20 seconds. So you might have to go back and fix it.
that's my tie-fi.
Okay.
I was saying the log man would hold on to the grappling hook,
Hmm.
and as the crane swung him from one side over to the other log pile, he did not just hang on, but he would start to create a swirling, a circular motion with his feet. And the narrator said that it took the pressure off of his arms to hold him on, and it made him lighter as he had to hold his body weight. For some reason, that rotation created a flow that made him lighter. To I don't know how else to explain it. Maybe I'm not doing a good
Well,
job of explaining it, but
I don't know that it made him lighter
it made
because
less
physically,
work for his arms.
right, because he's
Yeah,
not holding on in one static position.
that is
So this
exactly
is
what I mean to
this is
convey. Yeah,
this the, and so if you ever had to have a single explanation of what Tao is movement. And movement is constant in the universe. There's not a single particle in the world that does not move. Everything is always moving. Therefore, everything is always changing. So think about this. We think it's noble to hold on like this, but to hold on like this opposes that movement.
right.
But to move with it is to move with the movement of the universe. And so we
Absolutely.
want to
And
keep
I
doing that.
have to share, because you always make me think of so many wonderful ideas and visions. The Sufi dance, which is called Sema, Sema, the
Mhm.
Sema dance, which was created by Jalaluddin Rumi, is a beautiful and artistic expression of the fact that literally everything in the universe is not only moving, it's whirling, it's moving in a circle or a spiral, kind of a movement, even down to the ineffable core of your spirit within. And so when you see those magnificent and elegant Sufi dancers with the white costume spinning and spinning and spinning, and the right hand is up and receiving, and the left hand is lower and giving. They're receiving from God, universe, creation, everything, and giving. So in other words, it's flowing through them, receiving to give,
Yes,
and they're spinning because everything spins. And not only is each dancer spinning, but each dancer is also spinning in a circle around with the other dancers. So it's like this fractaled expression of the spinning of all things, the
of
circular motion
course.
of all things.
So doesn't our planet rotate?
Yes, all
And
that.
doesn't our planet orbit?
Yep.
And if you look at a whirlwind
Yeah.
or a whirlpool, they all
Yeah.
go in the centers. If you
That's
think
it.
about Indian yoga, they have chakras. And what does chakra mean? It means wheel. And so, yes, the Qigong people agreed. Energy moves in spirals. And if energy moves in spirals, then our exercise should also move in spirals,
Right.
right? And so there's one movement where you're going to go like this. So you're going around like this and then stretching and coming down. Or you can go like this, 1, 2, 3, out and back and forward again. You see, all these movements are circular. And that's why we continue to do it in agreement with the yogis and the Sufis and so on. They all discovered the same thing. Doesn't that make sense?
Of
There's
course.
no culture in the world that hasn't, understood that there's gravity. It's universal. And so this idea of spinning around is not some weird idea from some esoteric tradition. It is a natural discovery of our condition as human beings.
I love it. And it's poetry.
Yes.
It's poetic. Um, as we begin to wrap this up, and we've come a long way in a short time here, as far as your wonderful explanations and our increasing understanding of exactly what Qigong is. And I know that I speak not only for myself, but our viewers. Um, I'd like to find out and get involved. I would like to learn a whole lot more about this. It's another thing on my list of I can't believe I haven't been doing this yet. But anyway, I'm my interest is quite piqued by what you're sharing with us, even on this rudimentary level,
Mhm.
which is where most of us will be at. I do have a friend that's she's actually a Qigong instructor out in Hawaii, but I myself have not practiced it. And I think that, as we mentioned before, your premiere on the Shift Network is a really good chance for viewers who are interested. I'll find a link for that and put it in the description.
Okay, and that would be wonderful. And you can also look up my website, dengmingdao.com, and I offer courses there as well. Or you can look for a local Qigong teacher. It is really important to get a teacher because it's going to take you much farther, much faster. And can I just, not to scare anybody, but Qigong can be dangerous too. You can't, it's not a do-it-yourself thing, and it's not something that you can just experiment with, or that it's anything you feel like it's going to be. People can hurt themselves through Qigong as well, just like you can
Okay,
hurt yourself weightlifting or running,
right.
anything like that. So you should get good guidance. Don't just try to get a book and try it out.
Understood. Good point. It's not something that you want to just throw a video on and,
Right, because hello, it works.
yeah,
But because it works, like anything else, a car works, but you can drive a car into a wall.
right,
You need to know how to do it.
right. Got it. Is there one really cool, useful, basic, oft engaged move that you might be able to leave us with today, like something that, again, that we could take home and that would be okay to do before we?
Yeah, just you don't have to move around. You can just sit on the edge of a chair and just count your breath.
Okay.
Okay. And again, so here's a ratio that you should try. Just try for 4. Try to inhale for 4 and exhale for 8.
Now you're
And just
talking
try to
about
do,
counting beats.
yeah, just inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then try it again. And only breathe in and out through your nose.
Oh,
And
don't
if you
use
do
the
that,
mouth.
don't use the mouth, and I'll explain that in a second. But you want to do that, and do you feel calmer? You could try it for a minute, 2 minutes, and so on. And if you try that and you feel calmer, then you know that Qigong can affect the way you think and the way you feel. Why, just as a sidebar, why do you not use your mouth? Because when you breathe in through your nose has filters, right? But your mouth doesn't. So part of Qigong's concern is, can you expel toxins in the body? Well, if your concern is to expel toxins, then you don't want to breathe in more, right?
Okay.
So if you go like this, then you're just breathing whatever stuff is in the air, but your nose has natural filters. Next thing is, if you have a chance to look in an anatomy book, you'll see that your sinuses go up very close to your brain.
Mm,
So inhaling through your nose passes the air close to your brain, stimulates the brain. You
good
have 2
point.
nostrils.
Good point.
Do you think you just have 2 nostrils for convenience?
I have
You have
two
a left and
nostrils so
right
that
side.
I
Oh,
have
go
two
on.
nostrils so that one of them is working at any time, not always two.
Oh,
Some people have a deviated septum or are eating too much dairy, which will clog that up. So you have to make sure that you've got your nasal passages cleared.
that's actually not a joke.
No, I'm not
And that
joking.
happens, no, and that happens to everyone. That's not just you because you have dairy or anything like that. Most people, they switch. And why do we switch? We have a left and right side. So one of the um, goals of Qigong is to balance out those 2 sides. And that's why they always will breathe in through the nose. And in not necessarily Qigong so much, but in pranayama, which is the Indian yogic version of Qigong, they have alternate nostril breathing in which they try to override that switching left and right and
Yeah.
open both sides.
I'm so glad
So
you
it gets
mentioned
very
that.
subtle.
So glad you mentioned that because that's one that got away from my memory that I wanted to mention, the similarities between pranayama and qigong. This might seem like an aside, but here in Thailand, there's many, you can find similar things, I'm sure, in other countries. This is basically an inhalation herbal concoction in a little
Oh,
sachet, and you
really?
can, I can't
Oh,
tell you how instantly and effectively that helps to open those passages if you have
yeah.
congestion or such. And seriously about the dairy thing, if you find yourself to be congested a lot, cut out anything that is derived from milk. It will help.
Well, if you get into Qigong, you'll find that there's a whole set of dietary practices that go with it. It's not
Okay,
just breathing exercises. They look at everything, your diet, your sleep, and so on, and that's all part of it,
great.
right?
Very
So it's a
holistic.
long, long study.
Well, I tell you what, I think I need to study Qigong, and
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sure I'm
in
not alone.
Thailand, you must be able to find a teacher in Thailand.
Uh,
So take a look
it's,
around.
yeah, you've definitely got me hooked. I'm very interested, and I'm sure I don't speak only for myself, but for many of the viewers that have watched this with us today. And Ming-Dao, I thank you, brother. This is the third time
Thank you.
you've graced my little channel here, and you're just, you know, I love you for it and for who you are, not just
Thank you so
for
much.
what you offer, but for who you are. And that's why I revere you, and I'm sure that everyone watching feels the same. And can't really thank you enough, but
You're
let that
welcome.
suffice for now.
Well, you're very kind, and I admire the work you're doing, and I hope you reach more and more people because everyone needs to hear these ideas and benefit from them. So we just have to keep doing our work and help people find happiness, and that's the most important thing. So thank you so much for your time, and I love your questions, and I hope you find a good Qigong teacher.
I'm sure that I will. And
Great.
I thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, Ming Dao.
You're welcome.
Love you,
Thank
brother.
you.
Thank you.